Welcome to our video on Arizona lease and landlord-tenant laws. As a landlord, it's essential to know your rights and responsibilities to manage your rental property well. With that in mind, here are some important landlord-tenant laws in the Grand Canyon State. The lease agreement is the foundation of the landlord-tenant relationship. It's a legally binding contract between a landlord and tenant that sets the terms of the rental relationship. The most common type of lease agreement is a one-year, fixed-term lease that terminates at the end of the lease term. This is often referred to as a standard lease agreement. In addition to the basic terms of the lease, there are some additional things that Arizona landlords must include in their lease. Landlords must provide tenants with the name and contact information of the person managing the property. The lease should also provide information about where notices should be sent. Arizona law requires landlords to provide tenants with a copy of the Arizona Residential Landlord-Tenant Act when the lease agreement is signed. Landlords must provide tenants with educational materials about bed bugs, how to deal with them, and how to avoid their spread. At the start of the tenancy, landlords must provide tenants with a move-in checklist and an opportunity to complete a move-in inspection. At move-out, landlords should perform a move-out inspection after giving tenants written notice. If any fees are mentioned in the lease agreement that are non-refundable, the lease must clearly state that the fee is not refundable. If it doesn't, the fee will be considered refundable. If the property has access to a pool, the landlord must provide tenants with a copy of the Arizona Residential Pool Safety Notice. Pursuant to federal law, if a property was built before 1978, tenants must be provided with a lead-based paint disclosure and pamphlet. If the property has a submeter or shared utilities, the method for calculating the tenant's share of utilities must be disclosed. The landlord is entitled to charge an administrative fee to cover the cost of calculating and paying utilities.
Arizona law allows landlords to increase rent to cover any changes in the business passed through tax imposed, as long as this option is stated in the lease agreement and the tenant is given 30 days notice. Next, let's talk about key landlord-tenant laws in Arizona. In Arizona, the security deposit may not exceed 1.5 times the monthly rent amount. The security deposit must be returned to the tenants within 14 business days of the end of the tenancy. Landlords must provide tenants with at least 48 hours notice before entering the property for non-emergencies. Arizona does not have a required grace period for late rent or any limits on how much a landlord may charge for late fees. However, late fees should be reasonably related to the expenses incurred due to the late rent. Arizona landlords may require tenants to get renters insurance, and we always encourage landlords to do this. Returned payment fees may not exceed $25 plus any fees assessed because of the returned check. All Arizona landlords should be familiar with lease termination and renewal laws. Fixed-term leases terminate at the end of the term unless otherwise stated in the lease agreement. Month-to-month leases can be terminated by either party with 30 days written notice. Arizona does not impose a limit on how much a landlord can increase rent. However, the lease should specify the procedures and notice requirements for rent increases.
Arizona law requires landlords to maintain the rental property in a habitable condition. This includes ensuring essential services like plumbing, heating, and electricity function correctly. Tenants must promptly notify landlords of any necessary repairs, and landlords have 10 days to make major repairs. Tenants in Arizona have specific rights, including the right to withhold rent if the landlord fails to make major repairs. Retaliation by the landlord against tenants is strictly prohibited. If a tenant fails to pay rent or violates the lease agreement, the landlord may start the eviction process. When doing so, landlords must adhere strictly to Arizona law. Landlords can never resort to self-help eviction methods, such as changing locks or shutting off utilities. Congratulations, you're now familiar with key lease laws and you're ready to create your Arizona lease. While the lease laws might sound complicated, keep in mind that our Arizona lease automatically includes all required disclosures and gives you state assist tips as you create your lease. Before you turn over possession of your rental, make sure you've screened all tenants, have an executed Arizona lease agreement, and you've collected the entire security deposit and first month's rent. As you manage your rental, remember that we have over 400 property management forms including Arizona state-specific forms. Visit ezlandlordforms.com to start your tenant screening, create an Arizona lease agreement that's guaranteed to comply with all Arizona lease laws, and access Arizona property management forms.